What do you think is key for ensuring effective long-term global governance?
I think the first stage is to recognize that the system of global governance that we have today has singularly failed. These were institutions that were established several decades ago. The world economy is different, the global society is different, and therefore we need a different global response. Now, for there to be a global response, we have to think in a really global way, and we have to think about the representativity of the institutions that we have. And it is clear that the majority of the world's population is excluded, that whole swathes of the population don't have a voice, and therefore we need to put the accent on change, inclusivity, and also involvement of not just political actors but other actors as well. We like to think of the International Labour Office, the ILO, as giving an example of the way forward, because at that institution you have employers, you have governments, and you have working people all represented. For the 3 billion workers in the world, we often find that we don't have a seat at the table. So to be effective, one of the tests has to be, do working people have a seat at the table? And do their voice, the trade union movement, have the opportunity to sit in these various circles to put their point of view? And at the moment, that's simply not happening. And that's why we have these series of economic crashes and social crashes. And if we're going to escape this dilemma, then inclusivity, transparency, and a seat at the table is really, really important.
Confronted with a series of challenges, including shortage of aid, compartmentalized institutional practices, slow progress on meeting the Millennium Development Goals, and contracting economies, how can development assistance be reinvented to meet 21st century needs?
Let's not talk about development assistance anymore. Let's ditch that term and let's talk about a realignment of real global objectives. And that we have to get away from this kind of coins in the basket, that we're going to make a global collection and this is going to go to needy and worthy causes. It needs a different approach. It needs a realignment of objectives in global institutions, and it also needs a commitment of those global institutions to make a difference for working people. And for development assistance to work, that it has to be felt by the majority of the world's population. So development assistance, let's call it groundonomics, i.e. that we're going to have a global institutions that are committed to making a difference to people's lives. And as far as we're concerned, we will have 800 million new workers coming onto the labour market in the next decade. That's on top of the 3 billion that are already there. And therefore, we have to think in terms of what world of work awaits them. Is this a world of work where there is decent work? Is this a world of work where their rights to organise and rights to collective agreements are respected? So I would say groundonomics, with a commitment to universal healthcare, pension coverage, decent labour standards, and that we should realign the financing and the goals of institutions to provide that. We know that markets sufficiently open that business can do their trade. And what we have seen is a corruption of this idea, that it doesn't make sense that you open your markets and at the same time you make it easier for people to do business, but at the same time you put little thought and care and attention about what that means for the local population. So I think we have to reframe the discussion and realign the objectives, and then we're on the way to reinventing an approach which has people at its center and not just trade deals and tax deals and all the rest of it.
How optimistic are you that the challenges the financial crisis presents can be an opportunity for positive change?
We have a crash. The system is bust. The system doesn't deliver. It has delivered what? Financial instability, a financial crash, and we've seen that this generation of business leaders have misplaced the trust that was given to them. They've shown themselves singularly incapable of delivering sustainable development and of ensuring a balanced development for the world's working people. They've had it all. They've had open markets. They've had global capital markets. We have hundreds of trade agreements. We listened to the message that we needed light regulation and we didn't really need this kind of supervision and regulation that we were talking about. It's failed, it's crashed, it's burned, and therefore this generation has to get out of the state of denial that it is in. And what fills me with optimism is that this week, the world's #1 economy, we have a new president. And in many ways, he's the world's president, because if we ask people around the world who they would have voted for, they would have voted for Barack Obama. We've already seen in the first few days of his presidency, there's an agenda for change. There's an optimism, therefore, on our side, on civil society, that this man really does mean business. So, when you have a crash, you have to recognize that things have to be different. And the G20 said, never again. That were their words. This must never happen again. So, let's see if they are prepared to be courageous and to change business as usual. So, there's optimism. You can't find people who can stand up and defend what's happened in the last 2 years. We have economic failure. We have governance failure. We have a social failure. So our job on the trade union movement in Davos and elsewhere is to bring an agenda for change, and that we'll take that message to the streets, we'll take it to the boardrooms, we'll take it to parliaments, that we want to change this world, and I think we're going to succeed. I'm optimistic we can get this job done.